Hello students, in this video we're going to do direct proportion and indirect proportion. So let's start with direct proportion first. Please get ready some papers and a pen and so you can practice along with me. When we say two quantities x and y are in direct proportion, what we are saying is you can express y equals to k times x. And k is a constant. It means that the values of k does not change. You can have different values of x and y, However, the values of k will remain the same throughout. So when you express y equals to kx, you can actually divide by x on both sides so that you can actually make k the subject. That gives you k equals to y over x. Let's explain how we get this. But most of the time, we will just use y equals to kx. That is when both x and y are in direct proportion. And if you're going to draw the graph y equals to kx, you see that if I were to let x to be 0, right, I'll have y equals to k times 0. That gives you 0. So it will be y equals to kx will be a straight line graph, and you see that you pass through the origin 0, 0. So if I were to draw the graph for y equals to kx, this is how it looks like. X here and y here. Okay. Right, let's have an example. All right, so we have a pile of books, a pile of identical books. So, right, just imagine that you have all these books. Identical means they're exactly, they're the identical, they're the same types of books, same kind, and then you put them together, right? And then when you stack them together, of course, there will be a certain height depending on the number of books that you put together. So the height of this book you're given is directly proportional to the number of books, which makes sense because the more books you have, that means the higher, the bigger the values of h. Right, so we can say that, and then you're given that the height of the 10 books. At first, there are 10 books, 10 of them, and when you put them together, the height is 15 cm. So 15 cm represent your h, the n represent your n. So usually they will give you one value of h and one value of n so that you can find a constant k. And then from there you can find your equation, which is very important because the equation will allow you to find other values of h, given value of n, or given value of h, find n. All right. So this is what we have. Given h is equals to k, n, k is the constant. We are given h is 15 centimeter when the number of books is 10. We're going to substitute in to find our k. Right, so you're going to divide by n on both sides. So that's how you get k equals to h over n. And that's how you get k equals to 1.5. And getting the equations is important, as what I mentioned earlier on. This is the equation, okay? This is the equation you must have. So with this equation, right, you can sub in to find other values. So right now is you're asked to find the height when you have 24 such books. So 24 is the value for the small n. N represents the number of books. So we're going to substitute small n equals to 24. And then you see that the height will be 36 centimeter. Right, so let's look at the next question. So the next question says that y is directly proportional to x squared. So we can write it as y equals to kx squared. K is a constant, right? And you're given x is equals to 5, y equals to 75. So we're going to substitute all this into, but of course we're going to find divide by x squared on both sides. So you get k equals to y over x squared. So substituting y to be 75, make sure you bracket your x, because x squared. Why you want to bracket it? Because sometimes x can be a negative value, right? So you need to bracket it. So bracket 5 close bracket square, and then you just use your calculator to evaluate. You get k equals to 3, and after getting k equals to 3, put your k here, so that you will get this equation. This equation is important. Okay, right. So with this equation, it says to find the value of y when x is equals to 8. So you substitute x equals to 8 here. All right, make sure you bracket it, and then you just use a calculator to find the values of y, which it's 192. Right. So the concept is the same. When I say concept is the same, means when something is direct proportional to another quantity, right, you can just write it as y equals to k times that second quantity, right? So what varies is like, for example, just now we are told that y is directly proportional to x squared. Now you're told that y is directly proportional to square root of x. So these are the things you must know. Square of x means x squared. Okay, cube of x means x cubed. Okay, so square root of x means this. So cube root of x, it means like that. Right, so these are the things that you need to know so that you can write your equation. So y is equals to k times square root of x, right? K is a constant. So similarly, like what we have done earlier on, we want to find the constant k, which is y divided by square root x. Right, and you just basically use your calculator to evaluate this, which gives you 5. And then write down the equation. So the equation is y equals to 5 square root x. This is very important. Okay, I keep emphasizing this is important. Right, with that, you can substitute x to be 4 to find the values of y. So we have done a few examples. So it's now time for you to do some practice. Right, so we're given that y is directly proportional to t, and w is equals to 20 when t equals to 4. So find first of all an equation connecting w and t. Find the value of w when t is 6, and find the value of t when w equals to 5. So I have provided the answers for you, right? Just to help you a bit, if w is directly proportional to t, we can write it as w equals to k times t. All right, k is a constant. So you need to find k first using this information given. And then from there, you can find your part A, which is the equation. With that, you can substitute t to be 6 to find part B. Substitute W to be 45 to find T. Right. So for the next few slides, we're going to look at indirect, or sometimes they call it inverse proportion. Right. So when we say two quantities x and y are in inverse direction, that means when we say y is inversely proportional to x, means that I can actually write it as y equals to k over x, where k is a constant. Like what I've explained earlier on in direct proportion, k does not change, but the values for x and y can change. So what we're saying is that when x gets smaller, y get bigger. Right, so another way of doing it is if you were to multiply by x on both sides, you'll get k equals to xy, which what we have here. Okay, and if you're going to draw the graph, you will see that the graph of y against x, you will see that you get a hyperbola curve. Okay, hyperbola curve. All right, so let's look at one example. Okay, so you're given two quantity f and D. Two quantities we're talking here is F and D. Okay, when two objects are very close to each other, the force, the gravitational force for them will be small. When they are further apart, that means the when they're further apart, the gravitational force will be small. When they're very near to each other, the gravitational force will be big, right? So you're given that, so this is what you need to understand, square of the distance. What the square of the distance? We're going to let the distance be d. So what the square of the distance means? It means d squared, right? So it means that f is equals to k over d squared. K is a constant. So usually you'll be given some value for d and f to find your k. If you do, so you're going to substitute d to be 5. This is what you're given here. And then you can find the values of k to be 300. And with that, you can form the equation, which is very important. Okay, because the equation will help you to do part B. Right, so for part B, we're told that the gravitational force between these two particles is 0.75. So we're going to substitute it. Remember that the equations we have earlier on, it's n is equals to 300 over d squared. So we want to find the distance between them. Okay, so from here we can actually we can multiply by d squared on both sides. Because your denominator is d squared, so we can just times d squared on both sides to get 300 equals to 0.75 d squared, and divide by 0.75 on both sides. You get 300 over 0.75, and we can square root d squared is equal to 300 over 0.75. So it's possible to have two values. But of course, since d represents a distance, so you can't have a negative value for distance, so we just reject it. So d will be square root 400, which is 20. So when the two particles are at 20 meter with each other, the gravitational force is 0.75. All right, so let's look at the next question. So the next question is, y is inversely proportional to the cube of x. Yeah, so the cube of x means x to the power of 3. Right, so we can write the equation as y equals to k over x cubed. So this is very important, this part here. It tells you how to form an equation. So we're going to substitute x to be 2, y to be 16. And then you find your constant k to be 128. And the equations will be y equals to 128 over x cubed. Okay, this equation is very important because this one will help us to do part B. We're going to substitute x equals to 4. From there, you can find your y to be 2. I've explained to you the concepts of direct proportion and inverse or indirect proportion. So we need to put what we have learned into practice. So for the next 3 questions, they are N-level questions. So do try to do it on your own. Right, so this practice question says that y is inversely proportional to the square of x. Inversely proportional. Square of x. What does square of x mean? Yeah, it means x squared. So how do you write equations involving inverse proportion? So do try to do it on your own. Right, the next question is also a question on inverse proportion. It's an N-level questions from 2014. There are 3 parts, A, B, and C. Part A is to find the equation. Part B is to find the values of y when x is 4. Part C is to find the values of x when y is 70. Why is that y values of x and not value? Because if you look at what you're given, your y is inversely proportional to x squared. That means y is equal to k over x squared. Okay, because of this, there are 2 possible values of x. That's why it says for part C, find the values of x. Do try it. Right, so the last questions, part A is a direct proportion question, and part B is an inverse proportion question. All right, so please do these 3 questions diligently. All right, make sure you ensure that you have the correct answer. Otherwise, look at the concepts and examples again in the earlier slides. All right, happy learning.